stand for Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we could all stay standing, please, for one moment. I just wanted to make a comment about the untimely death of one of our department heads, Rachel Pierce's husband, so I'd like to have a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay. Before we even get into everything, I would like to welcome Kevin, our new person on our whole thing. We missed Paul Connolly is no longer on here, but Kevin, you'll be a great replacement, and I'm sure you'll be very active. Anytime you have any questions, this is a great committee to be on. We do a lot of involvement in a lot of different things, and makes you really excited to the stuff that goes through our. Of course, I see nobody here from any department other than Tim and Dan here. Ah, there we go. Okay. All right, so at this point, I'd like to make I need a motion to, unless there's, are there any questions or concerns or changes to the minutes? Hearing none, could I have a motion to accept?
Move it.
Second? Second. So done. Okay, let's move right into resolutions. EP1, resolution authorizing the County of Oswego to enter into a contractual agreement with the Housing Trust Fund Corporation and New York State Homes and Community Renewal to implement the New York State Community Planning Community Development Block Grant Program, CDBG, for Oswego County, New York. Motion to discuss?
Move it.
Second? Second? Okay. Tim, would you like to explain what's going on here?
Yes, I would. Okay, so we have two kind of back-to-back here. As you probably remember, this is a funding source, a federal funding source called the CDBG, or Community Development Block Grant. These funds are typically targeted for people who are below poverty line. It can also be used for moderate income folks as well. Typically, at least 51% of the funds need to be utilized for those folks. These two programs, I'll just kind of go over both of them right now. First one, $750,000 grant that we applied for and received to help work on, actually, I'm sorry, the first one was a $50,000 grant. This is going to be a survey that we're going to be doing to look at the infrastructure, safety of drinking water, wastewater of some of our manufactured home parks. Working on saying that correctly. Manufactured home parks throughout the county. And we've had conversations with a number of the town supervisors, specifically Granby, Town of Oswego, Town of Hannibal, that have some strong concerns with some of their parks. And so this is going to allow us, if the owners are willing, and that's an important piece of it, to work with them to understand what their limitations are, potentially also working with our health department if needed. This is the first step. Once items and issues are identified in the survey, we can then directly go to get grant funding to hopefully remediate it, fix it. So this is going to be an important program. If any of you have in your community these manufactured home parks, I know you have a couple. This is going to be a very, very important funding opportunity here. There's not a ton of funds for programs where we can invest in the infrastructure that's owned by somebody else. So this is kind of the program. I will say some of the issues we're going to see, as you can imagine, if we have an absentee owner of those trailer park, manufactured home parks, we have found that they've been less than interested in bringing the government in to review what's really happening. So we are working with the health department to hopefully kind of get an idea of maybe once, if they've been cited, we could potentially use this to help have a plan for the future.
What surprised me is that we have 80 to 90 of these mobile home parks in the county. And I believe it's anything over, what, 3 or 6 mobile homes together?
Yeah, and I think it's more of an acreage delineation, but either way, what we did is we went beyond just the typical, here's a park on a hill, right? We really tried to, we actually worked with our real property office and planning office to come up with a heat map in our county of where they're located based on the real property folks. And that would allow us to kind of come up with some other areas that weren't necessarily seen as parks, but they would qualify for this program.
Okay. Now, back last year in May, we did a public hearing on it. And in July, we made you as the contact so that the state would be able to get us funds. Does anybody have any other questions? Tim? Ray?
Tim, this is strictly a New York State funding stream? Because if it's federal, it's probably going to dry up.
Great point. So these funds were set aside in last year's budget. Our understanding is, although they are federally originally sourced, they do run through New York State's Housing and Community Renewal Office.
Doesn't mean a lot.
One of the other things that we've looked into was what, not to get too political, but what was restricted in the previous term. And wastewater, transportation, other programs like that were supported by the federal government. So we do hope to see that continue this year.
My concern are we trying to expand mobile home parks in the area, or are we trying to rectify a lot of mess that exists?
It's definitely the latter. This one specifically, it's only $50,000. It's not a ton
Well,
of
you're
money.
looking at them. I
But the thought
understand.
is how do we improve them?
There's a 750 behind that.
Well, the 750,
That's for water and
yes, completely
potable
separate.
water.
Yep.
My concern is that I did just a little bit of research. A double wide, let's say you can't get them for $150, but if you purchased a $150,000 one, in 5 years, it loses a minimum of $50,000 and does degrade the real property surrounding it. Noel, you'd know more about that than anyone. Most of the parks that I've seen in the area, barring Lake Thompson's, has always been maintained really well. But there's one out by Rudy's that the police departments don't even want to enter it. It's so dangerous. It's owned by somebody in New Jersey, and it's a real scary. The 3 people who live there said they see big Escalades drive in through there. There's some very unusual happenings, but no, not even police force wants to go in there. And I'm just curious, I mean, would we require a permit for these park owners? And could they be cited if it's in a disheveled state?
Great question. The specific piece about the enforcement is all going to be done on the local level. So one of the things we're working on is like Town of Granby, Town of Oswego, and Town of Hannibal, with what their enforcement looks like. What is their codes actually say? Are they zoned for those things? So there's a kind of a higher level conversation that needs to be happening. Are these folks satisfying the local requirements that the towns have? As far as enforcement goes, that typically, especially in our town, there's not a lot of teeth to our town enforcement, unfortunately. Sometimes they can say, don't do this, but outside of taking them to court or suing them, it's very difficult to actually get them to do what they're saying. So the front end is the important piece, when we allow them to go in, because once they're in, it's very difficult to enforce a lot of that.
Well, as long as an existing department can handle this, which it certainly seems like it can, I'm just not for making another department and another employee and another stack of bills.
Yeah, and that's a great point too. One of the things we are looking to do is these are pretty substantial programs. Now the interesting thing and kind of the one beneficial thing is that CDBG grants are some of the only grants that actually pay admin fees, meaning they pay you to take the grant. We typically turn those around and reinvest them into the program as opposed to like writing down our own wages and things. It gets us more bang for our buck. With a couple of these programs, we're looking at partnering directly with a nonprofit like the Oswego County Housing Development Council, who does this as a mission, to kind of work with them and utilizing their staff time to kind of supplement ours where it makes sense. There are certain things that have to be done that the county doesn't necessarily do. Training sessions and programs with the grant awardees, like the sub-recipients, the trailers and the other. And that's not necessarily something we do here. We don't really have a training program for that. The Housing Council out of Fulton, that's what they do. So we just partner with them, and there's some funds in this that will kind of help us invest in that program.
Yeah, I think,
I'm just kind of wavy about what we're actually going to do, but okay.
yeah, I think a lot of things are up in the air, as you say. We don't know, is the federal money going to come to even New York State to be able to have this grant? That's number one. Number two, what this has to do with is not really making more mobile homes.
Well, you got a sizable job if you're going to bring them up to code.
Well, again, this is purely water and wastewater infrastructure review. There are other issues as well.
Well,
The hope is
wastewater would be interesting.
it is
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's a biggie for what they're, yes.
So I mean, as you've been saying for as long as I've known you here, the infrastructure piece is crucial, and
It
especially
is.
with low to moderate income housing, you cannot build a house for under $300,000, and that doesn't include infrastructure or purchase, right?
That might be 500.
It might be.
Lumber out of Canada.
And so one of the things that we are seeing is that if you're to find housing that isn't, like we talked about a lot, the low-income housing towers, right? What other options are there? Well, there are cheaper homes that can be built. They look a little more like double wides, but these days they're a lot nicer looking, so to speak. But we need to have a way to house folks, and this is a way
Us
to do
kids
that.
grew up in city homes, you know what I mean? Different areas, but they were well cared for in really nice condition for the most part. And the city's kind of crumbled. There's a lot of infrastructure there, and there's a lot of homes that I would think would bear rehabbing. It just seems like it's already there. Couldn't we improve on that?
Well, this particular one, Austin?
I'm not going to jump in here, but when it gets to my turn, there's an initiative going on right now at the regional level and state level that potentially could assist on that. It's taking the ideas of what's going on with ORA and block builders and expanding it out to a regional effort. So
Nice.
I can speak more to that.
Mm-hmm. Well, at this point, this resolution, as we know, has to do with wastewater and the 2 mobile homes. And does anybody have any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. EP2, basically it's the same thing, isn't it? Except this is the study.
Well, no. So EP1 was the study for the parks. It's only $50,000, and it's purely a look out their inventory. The second one is it's a separate program, but it's the same funding stream. It's still CDBG funding. This is one that's going to allow us to actually help local homeowners who are on septic tanks that need work, typically identified by our health department, or potentially, they reach out to us. There's a whole application process. And what would allow us to do is to give, I believe it's the $10,000 towards either the remediation or replacement of a septic tank. Now, anybody who's put in a new septic tank in the last 5 years knows that between the environmental review and just the cost of things, for a raised bed system, you could be talking $20,000, $30,000. But this still allow, I believe, up to $10,000 towards helping them offset their costs.
And this is the same of 49%. What is it? 51% has to be low income, but 49% can be above that.
Yeah, and we do have we are required locally to have kind of how are we going to review these, right? We can't just be like, oh, I like this person, here's $10,000, right? So we do have a process that we have here. It does prioritize, communities that have shown interest in improving their housing stock. But it also, one of the more important things that we did this time around is we're prioritizing homes owned by county residents. One of the other things that we've seen is sometimes people will come in and they'll, not that we don't want them to own houses here as a second house, they still pay taxes, and they still they're eligible, but we are prioritizing people who live in Oswego County, who own and are here, that's their main house. So that'll be the
Well,
first
that
round.
helps you, as you're saying, some people might
And my only question again is, how much is the administration piece going to cost?
Well, it's in addition, so the $750,000 is the grant. In addition to that, we get probably $70,000, somewhere in that range of admin fees that we get.
So the department would just absorb it?
Yeah, or typically we would use it to, again, reinvest into the program. It allows us to either offer some additional services that we didn't have before. We as a county get to kind of choose how we use those admin fees. They do allow us to reinvest them into the program. Yeah.
But it's not going to cost us more in the budget, is my
No. Correct. That's correct. Nothing. No additional cost to the budget.
No. So far, nothing is being a budget modification.
Give it a minute.
Okay, I guess I should have gone to, do we want to discuss this?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, second. Okay, any other questions or comments? Yes.
This isn't the one that they have to be located near the water.
No, it's a separate program. We do have that one. That one, I will tell you that with everything going on kind of federally, we did pause a number of these just to make sure that everything was good. We have resumed those, and it's our understanding that those funds are still available and the program is still going forward. To be clear, we are awaiting your action on this next week to formally accept this. We'll then have a GDA or a signed contract with the state HCR office, and then we'll move forward with the programming. That program is already
Yeah,
been.
thanks. And that program has nothing to do with income, am I correct?
No, that one is purely
Water,
based. You
that's
got it.
just purely based on.
It's more of an environmental concern.
It's an environmental one. Any other questions or concerns?
What are the income limits? They aren't stated.
Well, there's a range, and there's a priority given to those who are lower income. That was part of our requirement to get the grant, right? Because CDBG is low income money. That's what the federal government sets it aside for. So we have to prioritize those folks. Again, doesn't mean we can't, but it is part of our review. So if 2 people apply and we only have enough for 1 and we got 750,000, which probably going to be 75 or so of these that we give out, we would have to prioritize based on it's called the admin plan. I think we agree, it's the way we agree to manage the program for the state. We agreed to prioritize those who are lower income. Again, doesn't mean we can't serve the other folks, but we have agreed to the state in order to take the money that we will prioritize those who are lower income.
Roy?
The informational memo says income's 80% or less of median. That's identified by a sweeper.
80% is somewhere around $68,000, $70,000, somewhere around that range for a family of 4 or 5. It moves, and we are kind of tacked into the Onondaga County, so it does kind of throw off our numbers a little bit, but there's definitely a range. It's based on your family size as well.
And they have to be up to date on their local property taxes.
That is correct.
Which is good.
Yes. That's good.
Makes sense.
Any other questions or concerns? Those in favor? Opposed? So moved.
And I, if I could, I would, one of the things I think we can do a little bit better is giving updates on how these programs are working, the types of people, the types of, we're going to try and, not this is going to be story time with Tim, but I'll try and bring some, you know, some names, some of the people who've been helped.
Speaking as a former legislator.
Yes. Thank you. Going on to EB3, resolution authorizing Office of Mobility Management to apply for rural transportation funding for the fixed and on-demand.
I'll move it for this.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Paul, second. Okay. Heather?
So apologies for the language in this resolution. This language is provided from the Department of Transportation. They provide us a template to use. But this is the grant that we apply for annually. Last year, because of the delay in the budget, they decided to release 24 and 25 in one application together. So we fill it out with actuals for 24 and then projections for 2025 funding. With this grant, it does fund the Office of Mobility Management as well as capital items like buses. We're going to be applying for 4 replacement buses, but also 3 additional buses to expand our fleet, mainly for the demand response service. We have a lot of buses to cover our fixed route, but not demand response, so I want to start expanding the fleet to get those covered. With the capital items, they are covered 90% through this grant, but we put the additional 10% in another grant, so it's covered 100% for the capital and match for that. But this is the normal grant that we apply for, just in general for operating capital and mobility management.
Any questions for Heather? Hearing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Okay, we have one more walk-on, EB4. Noel, could you just send these out? This is a resolution designating the Director of Community Development, Tourism, and Planning as the Fair Housing Officer for the County of Oswego. A motion to discuss? Second? Okay, this is, Tim, I'll let you take this one as well.
Yeah, first off, I want to apologize for it not being in your packet. That was my mistake. Did not get it in time, so I apologize. Not Raven's fault, not anybody's fault. That was on me. This is a resolution that simply states that for the purposes of those grant programs we just talked about, we are required to have someone who's designated as our fair housing. Historically, when we had a HUD office, it was our HUD administrator who was named that. With that going away at the end of last year, we needed somebody else named simply so that we were eligible to apply and for the funds. I am that person, or at least I'm recommending I be that person going forward, and that's what this resolution is saying.
It would seem to make sense that you're right there. You're already the certifying officer for the CDBG grant, so they kind of go hand in hand.
And the pay increase was substantial.
Yeah, we thought we really threw you a lot there. Yes, okay. Any questions, Tim?
We'll make a motion to pass it.
Okay, second?
I think we already got it.
We already did. Thank you. All right. Tim, another job. Excellent. All right, let's go into our reporting departments.
He does.
Austin, you're up.
Okay, great. Give me just a second. I was trying to add something up. I just saw something come through and wanted to give you guys the most up-to-date information on it.
I thought, okay.
Hey.
Sorry, see, I thought,
Yeah, first or second.
All right.
All in favor.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Passed.
Thank you, sorry.
Yes.
Okay, last week, New York State, through Empire State Development and some of the other agencies that award funding throughout the state, through the consolidated funding application, announced that 13 projects in Oswego County had received funding for $14,149,400, which I believe is one of the highest we've ever received in a CFA round for projects in Oswego County. Some of the highlights from that were infrastructure-related projects, a significant infrastructure project for the City of Fulton wastewater plant. Plus, there's some infrastructure projects going on in the Village of Pulaski, as well as there are several businesses involved and some other projects that are local waterfront revitalization and other things. I know that Tim was involved in some of these as well, supporting them. So, a good round for Oswego County through the CFA. The thing I want to state about that is that 2 years ago, the state went to a model of, it used to be, there was a deadline in July, and if you didn't make it, better luck next year. They moved to a model where it's sort of this batch, and they said, we're going to keep having funding rounds until we run out of money or we hit the next fiscal year. So the state has March 31st is our last deadline for 2024 money. To get in an application. And this is funding through, this is ESD grant funds specifically, which are used for brick and mortar projects or for planning and feasibility studies. So it's not your DEC funding, it's not, all the other sources that potentially are available in part of the big round. But if you do have a project in one of your communities that you think would be a good fit, please let me know and we'll help connect them and see if we can help them to get some funding. Or if you know that there's a potential planning or feasibility study that one of your communities is looking to do, or the county is looking to do. Planning feasibility studies can get up to 50%, and a typical brick and mortar project could get up to 20%, unless it's childcare, could get up to 40%. So those are just some quick things on that. So that was
One thing, Austin,
yep.
Sometimes these grants and stuff, it has to come from a local municipality that the county can't apply for. This is one you're saying the county could apply for?
If it's a county project.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think it's got to be clear that it's that you can't apply for it on behalf of someone else.
Okay.
That would have to be a county project for you to do that. But and then if it's for some reason it doesn't fit one of those pots, the typical CFA round will start back up in May and we'll have its deadline sometime in July, like they've been doing the last 15 years or so. So that's the first thing I wanted to mention. The second is, and I don't believe we talked about this in December, but there's been a lot of talk in recent last 2 months or so about the future of nuclear in New York State and how it's really being seen as one of the ways to sort of solve the clean energy corner that the state's painted themselves into related to renewables and everything else. They're now looking, saying, hey, we really think that small modular reactors and the nuclear can provide a lot of the baseload power that we need. To the level that the Department of Energy at the federal level and New York State has requested Constellation to submit an early site permit for 9 Mile Point for the potential construction of a fourth nuclear power plant. This is probably the most action and sort of momentum we've seen around this since the early 2000s, when there was talk about, I think 2007 or 8 or so, of potentially building another one. So that's really positive to see that. Obviously, this at this point is just related to the early site permit for that. It's not specific to funding or actually moving it forward. And that's still, when you build a nuclear power plant, we're talking a 7 to 10 year process. It's a long time. There's a lot of regulatory. There's a lot of just stuff that needs to happen, but I would say that the 9 Mile Point site is more strongly positioned than anywhere else in New York State to support additional nuclear, just because of the infrastructure, the workforce, everything else that they have in place there. So I'm going to say now, I feel pretty confident. If one were to be built, that's where it's going to happen. The other potential would be out at Gannett, out in Wayne County, but it's a one plant location, doesn't have the same infrastructure and redundancies and other things that 9 Mile does. So that's really good news there. One thing around that, I know the county has already put together a resolution supporting this, is that the state is also moving up its schedule to look at renewal of the zero emission credits. So if for most people that we remember, back in 2015, Entergy at the time owned the Fitzpatrick facility, and they announced a closure of the facility for economic reasons. And there was a strong grassroots effort led by Oswego County to support that, and with other partners like Upstate Energy Jobs and others, we were able to work together in New York State to design the zero emission credit program, which was put in place to not only save Fitzpatrick, but make the other nuclear power plants in New York State economically viable. So that program is slated to run out in 2029. However, the state is now looking to open it up early. So later this year, they're going to be looking to open it up and look to redesign that program. And so I want everyone to be aware, because we're going to be working on a major advocacy effort to try to make everyone aware who's part of that process, that these credits are very important to the future viability of these plants. And there's no talking about a fourth nuclear plant if we can't make those credits happen for the four existing ones across New York State. So that's something that we're already starting, and we're meeting with Constellation and discussing plans for that going forward. Another thing I wanted to talk about is the IDA recently has entered into an agreement with a company called Remco Group. They are looking to build a ultra pure CO2 manufacturing facility. So when you think of CO2, you think of that's usually an output from it's a waste, really, usually, because it has other trace things in it, nitrogen and all these other things. Well, these guys are going to be, they are proposing to produce electricity and ultra pure CO2 through a process that will create a food grade CO2, pharmaceutical grade CO2, and generate over 30 megawatts. This would be adjacent to where Riverview Business Park and Addis, and that is on property owned by the IDA.
Can you spell that? What's that company name?
Remco, REMCO.
Thanks.
And it's a very large project. One thing I will say is that the company has been planning for a while this project, and so there are some programs and incentives that they have sort of built into their model that may not be there in the 6 to 12 months from now. But they are also, one of the things that's interesting about them is that they are also right now talking to major companies in the Fulton area about providing them potentially with power and process heat and things like that. So similar to like how Scythe works over in the town of Scriba, they provide process heat over to Novellus, which produces another product for them and helps Novellus. There's potential for that here. So we're looking at some other things that could help make the economics even stronger on this project. So, but that's something that we'll be talking more about over this year. It's going to be, I think that it's not a done deal from the perspective they're going to start building this year. I think there's some financing sources and things that still need to be worked out, but it's one we're excited about because it makes that entire area where the Addis facility is, Riverview Business Park and all that, more viable because it's going to have more power on site, which right now is a constraint. Other things going on. So the IDA is right now just finishing an application to New York State for a program called Fast New York. This is New York's shovel-ready site program to get funding for infrastructure and site readiness. $7 million to pretty much cover all other costs associated with the industrial park expansion down in Schuylkill. Last year, the IDA received a $2.5 million grant through the U.S. Economic Development Administration, specifically to do roads, water, and sewer. They will only do public infrastructure. This other grant would be to cover electrical infrastructure upgrades, including a new substation, all new underground electrical, all gas, which also includes bringing additional gas from the main, and then some site readiness activities that altogether equal right around $7 million. So we're pretty confident that the state sees this project as a major priority. It's 8 miles from the Micron site. It also is just, outside of that, we've had about 15 inquiries over the last year or so about projects that happen there. And we need to have these infrastructure investments made to be able to land these projects, because without them, we're just talking about a farm field. So So that's something else that's going on. That'll probably be going in here probably in the next week or two. We're just waiting for some final support letters and things, and then that will be going out. There's going to be several construction projects taking place this spring at the industrial park. Daldrop is on site right now. They are moving soil around down there, doing some borings. I've gotten their construction schedule. I think about in March they're going to be moving a lot of dirt around and start pouring concrete if they can. I mean, we'll see about with this winter if they can or not. It's been a little bit colder and more extreme than the last few. But so they're going down there, Fab Site's going down there, and then we're also working with another company, ACLS, that is looking to finalize their purchase of property, and then they are looking to start some work down there later in 2025. And that's really on the last few remaining existing sites within the industrial park. You know, there's maybe another 10 or 15 acres of buildable area down there outside of those projects, but it just shows how imperative it is to continue the expansion before we really run out of property in that park. The last thing I want to mention is just goes back to what you and Legislator Shad and Tim were talking about you know, how do we build from within in cities? I think that the Oswego Renaissance Association and Fulton Block Builders have taken a proven model, the healthy neighborhood approach, and they've actually expanded it beyond what any other group has done in the country in terms of making a very successful model of building neighborhoods from within, rebuilding neighborhoods, rebuilding social capital and social equity within communities. It's one of the things I think that, you know, you can rebuild houses, but if people don't feel like their neighbors, that's, you know, you're solving a situation that's just going to repeat itself down the road. So they've taken this effort of saying, hey, let's not just rebuild houses, let's recreate neighborhoods and recreate neighbors. The state has taken a very optimistic look at this program. I know that Assemblyman Will Barkley has championed it at a level of trying to have this be something that's funded at the state level. And now they're looking to take it from just the two communities that operate in Oswego County, the city of Fulton and the city of Oswego, and turn it into a region-wide effort, which could support up to 6 communities throughout the region. I'm going to be going to a meeting later today where they're going to be talking about proposing that funding for that. You know, they're looking at this also as a 10-year program. This isn't a 1-year program to see if it works. It's a let's do this on the long term and really see if this can impact. And I know that Paul Stewart from ORA and Linda Egan from Fulton Block Builders are really the ones pushing this forward. And so I feel pretty good about this, that if they can get support from the state, that this is something we can show works at the regional level, because the state's really looking for things that they can take and they can expand out, not just something that works in one community, something that can work in all communities. And so they're looking to take this, if it works in a pilot level at the regional level, as a statewide program. And, you know, this, like I said, this is something that's grown right here out of Oswego County. We've shown it's worked here, and we may now become the model at a statewide level of how to rebuild communities from within. So it's not the save all or do all for all problems, but I think it's one of those, especially when you're working within what we call middle markets. Take something that's a middle market. It's not the best, it's not the worst, but how do you take that and you save, protect it, and then build it back into something that's strong? And I think that that's sort of where you need to, that's where the best efforts can be spent at this time. So that's my report.
One of the projects that, as you mentioned earlier, that any municipality can.
Not yet. What I would say is that if the state approves this funding specifically for Central New York to do this, then that would be the funding right there. And then it's not really competitive at that point. This is funding that's already existing at this level. If a community maybe wanted to go after planning feasibility study money to see how could this work within their community, that could be a project.
Okay.
You know, but they would also they'd have to come up with the other 50% of the funding to fund that study. But if it's something that like say Village of Pulaski or something like that wanted to do, I think that's a viable thing there. They just wouldn't get the funding to actually do the work. It would be more to show, hey, is this feasible here, and you know, what would it look like? So.
Okay. Right.
Any, are you working with the land bank on this now?
I'm not working with the land bank directly on it. I don't know if the land bank is working. I know that Paul Stewart's on the board for the land bank,
Okay,
and
so
I think
there you go.
Yeah, I think there's already connections there, but it's not something I'm specifically doing. I'm also I'm on the board for ORA as well, just, you know, but I think that's something that shows some value. Now, the thing about the healthy neighborhood approach is that It works because that there's density. You're not doing one house on one block and then 5 blocks away you're doing another house, and it doesn't work unless you get like 5 houses at least on a block doing it and showing that there's sort of a transformational value of doing things in a very dense area.
Trust me, I've been an advocate
Yeah.
for trying to do this across the county for a really long time.
Yeah.
And I really think the places to target are our villages,
Mhm.
because we already have the density there.
Absolutely.
We already have the problem with degrading areas where, changing 1 or 2 buildings, within a neighborhood of 5 or 7 can change that whole block.
Yeah. So I think that that's absolutely one of the things on the table right now. Like I said, they're looking to fund 6 total throughout the region. Those are not decided where that's going to happen. But yeah, I think that, and it could be similar to how they have the DRI set up for bigger communities and then they have New York Forward set up for smaller communities. They may decide to grow a program that works at a village level. Maybe they don't need $200,000 a year to make improvements across the city. Like you do with the city,
Yeah.
you can do it for $50,000.
If the grant is $5,000 per household and you target, 5 houses, it's 25 grand.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of growth with that, and I mean, it's, as you say, we could be the pilot. We could be what everybody looks at because it has been very, very successful. Anybody that's gone down where they've done it is amazing, the difference. And it's all about neighbors and neighborhood and helping each other.
I want to add to that because, being homeowner in Fulton, I actually went through the Fulton block builders when we first bought our house, probably about 8 years ago. And not only being able to do what the program does, but in that aspect, meeting the neighbors, because we'd only been there for a little while, but it's also what Fulton does is adds a community service project to it as well. Where I live, it's like every 2 years, somebody around the neighborhood does it and gets a block to do it. But there's been cleanup at the church that's across the street, painting the church. There's also been, just a little playground in my neighborhood. There's a brand new slide for the kids there. Just little things like that to not only help with the housing of your community members, it's meeting the neighbors and doing those projects together as well.
Overall improvement of quality of life.
Yes.
Working together as a team is very, very important. Gives everybody a little bit of unity. That's what we need. Any other questions for Austin?
Austin, did you
Yes.
see the piece on, I think it was Channel 9? This house, it's amazing, sold for $4,000. It was in terrible condition.
Mm-hmm.
They completely rehabbed it, and it's having like an amazing effect in the Syracuse.
Is that in the Westcott neighborhood? I think I know which house. I can't see the picture from here, but I think it's in the Westcott neighborhood. I think I know which one you're talking about.
It was on the news, and I was
Yeah.
like astonished at
Yeah.
what they did.
There's
They bought it for $4,000.
there's been some efforts in other cities, like the city of Auburn has, when they've gotten properties in the past, instead of them trying to maximize the amount that they can sell it for, they pretty much said, hey, the price is $1, you come to us with the best and highest use. And just that alone just creates this marketing and promotion around it that people are like, oh, this is really, interesting, a house for $1 and you got to come with the best plan possible. And they've been able to turn some properties around that way. They've also had some where, someone got it and then became a headache because, 3 years later, nothing happened and, they sold to them for $1. But, I think you got to start being creative to try to solve some issues. Those are things that land bank and other entities that have the ability to get property could do, if they could figure out an innovative way to do it. But it's a good idea.
Any other questions for Austin? Okay, hearing none. Go right on to Rachel, Workforce Development Department.
All right. I actually have about here. I finally got from Department of Labor. We did our program monitoring back in September. So this was just our final letter that we got the first week of January. But it goes through everything that was monitored. They do it through our one-stop operating system, so it's all the data entry that then gets fed into our performance measures that I know I've shared here before. So I know it's a lot, a couple pages, a lot of information, but basically what it boils down to
They did have two findings. The first one, which is on the second page, inaccurate reporting of training-related outcomes, which was again just not putting in a measurable skill gain. That's what the MSG is. That is mentioned about halfway down the page. For one person that was in training, we had the information. It wasn't put in the system, so that was resolved. And then on the second page, you see finding 2, inaccurate documenting of low income status. Again, we had documentation, the data entry wasn't done correctly, it was resolved. So in the end, no issues with the data entry, which I must say I was pleasantly surprised about because of all the newer staff that we have, and this is what they're doing. We have been doing more reviews of data entry to make sure that everything's turning out okay, but overall, it was a great review, and Oswego County has always had a reputation of great data entry and no problems with program monitoring, so we want to keep it that way.
Well, it's good to see there was no nefarious thing going on of trying to get it. It was just looking at human error.
Exactly, and the state demands perfection, so if that's 2, I'm okay with that.
We're good.
Yeah. So hopefully we had our fiscal monitoring, the annual monitoring in November. So I would hope within the next month or so, I will have the report for that. Which again, there were a couple findings or observations we did resolve, or had a plan for the next year. So once I have that better, I will bring that to you all here as well. So last week was the Real Life Rosies program graduation ceremony that a couple of staff from our department did attend. But just for some numbers on completion, there were 11 women that went through the class. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's either 5 or 6 are already employed with local manufacturers. Huhtamaki did take a majority of them. So that was fantastic, and there are some that are actually still in interview process with some other manufacturers as well. Everyone coming out of the class, there were 3 that did not earn a manufacturing certification that was in the class, but what they are being offered is to take an OSHA 30 instead, so that they do come out with a certification. Work keys was also offered to everyone, and about half did come to both testing sessions and earned their NCRC under work keys. And everyone that completed the class received a $250 Amazon gift card, or Walmart. We did Walmart for them. Once they get their certification, whether it was the manufacturing certification or once they earn their OSHA 30, they will get another $250 gift card. And then once they have supplied us with their copy of their first pay stub with employment, they're getting a $500 gift card. So all in all, if they're completely successful and get employed, they're getting $1,000 incentive, really, gift card to be able to use.
That carrot at the end of the stick. That's what they need just to keep going.
Absolutely. And their work key certificates were also given to them last week. So
excellent.
I know that MACNY had only had a grant for this one cohort. They have applied for more, but I believe it was through the federal government, so who knows if and when they will hear about that and funding coming that way. But hopefully there is funding there to be able to do it again. So that would be great. Just a couple things that are going to come up later this year under our WIOA regulations. We do have our contract with our one-stop operator, which is a requirement to basically oversee the partnerships within the local workforce development area under WIOA. We currently have a contract with Action Collaboration, who is Zoe Vandermeer, and she's a one-stop operator for about 5 different areas across the state. So we work virtually with her. She lives in Unadilla, but she's been great at doing our partners meetings with all of the other agencies that we're required to have that partnership with. Her contract well, not hers, our one-stop operator contract, we're looking to have that into purchasing to be able to put out for RFP. We are gonna send it to Zoe again because she has that great, that is gonna be a $5,000 contract that we'll put out. So it's minimal. And then our other contracts that we are required to have for youth services under WIOA for mentoring. We've had it with OCO the past 3 contracts. So about the last 10, 12 years has been with them. But that contract does expire June 30th, so we're working on the scope for that to go through purchasing and then put that back out for RFP. So just a heads up that those will be coming through and whoever applies for those.
Do we have more than one of the mentoring, or is it just, that's it, you?
It's just that, so the last time this contract went through was 2020. I kind of came in at the tail end of it. And Cayuga Community College had at that point also applied, and it was going to be split, but then when COVID hit, they kind of pulled out. So OCO stuck with it. I will say OCO does a great job with the kids. Because they will take any means necessary to contact them. They go through Facebook to contact them, they'll text them, they'll call them, they'll meet them where they need to be. They're doing that one-on-one mentoring that some of these youth need that we just don't have the capacity, but also my staff's not trained to do that piece of it. So OCO does do a great job. The contract is close to $45,000. We do not spend that much. It's not for lack of referring the youth that need it. It's getting the youth to follow through. The ones that follow through and go through the process are very successful. They're the ones that we have great success with. It's just getting them to participate. So when they can find that connection, it's great for them.
What type of mentoring? What do they do? No, I'm just curious.
It's really just having that adult figure for these kids. But there's 2 pieces to the contract. It's that mentoring piece, but then there's also a supportive services where they will help them if they need help with housing, to find a primary care, any health care, anything else that they need for those social determinants of health. They will help with that. And again, it's a requirement that we have somebody supplying these services and have them available for the youth under WIOA. And that's just, it's not in our purview.
What's the ages of the youth?
They're 16 to 24.
16 to 24?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that does make sense in getting them in there to housing and all that stuff.
Childcare sometimes.
Childcare sometimes with these,
Yeah.
Give them a hand up, I guess.
So those will be coming down the pipe because both of those contracts are, they're done on June 30th. So besides that, I'm really just catching up at this point. That's what I've got.
Rich? I'm sorry, Tim?
All right.
Rich.
I don't know.
I just look like I am in the money these days.
I guess.
Rich, do they work with the school districts on this? We've had a bunch of meetings, and I'll talk about my updates with the, for the housing study, but we met with 6 of the 9 superintendents the last couple of weeks.
Okay.
Do you know if that program and the mentorship piece of it works directly with the school district? It's one of the things that we found in our anti-poverty collaborative was that one of the biggest issues and one of the biggest determinants of whether someone's going to stay in poverty is if they have a plan in 11th grade. Do kids in 11th grade have a plan? And I'm just curious if the schools have been working with these folks.
So not these, but some of that is because the youth that we refer to this program are out of school youth.
Have to be?
That's the determination we've made because our in-school, they have those school supports.
Okay.
And they have, we'll help them get in touch with their counselors and everyone in
So these
school.
people who don't have access to that because they're no longer in school, typically?
Yeah, the ones that, they're out on their own and they don't have anybody.
Is there a referral program that comes from the school maybe to these folks to say, hey, we lost this one, so to speak, the handoff? I mean, I don't know if that makes sense, like a handoff to this program so that they keep that mentorship going?
Well, we do get some of those kids because they have dropped out of high school. They're still at high school age. So we do have that contact. But no, if they're still enrolled, typically we don't. Ron?
So right now we're doing the work keys in like 3 districts, 3 school districts. So
It's solidly, and 3, I know the conversation is having.
so that would be the thing to try to
Yeah.
dig in with when you're getting all supers in the room again, is to be able to bring up and then have the supers that are dealing, seeing the successes now with these kids that either might be falling through the cracks, or if they're taking it as juniors and realizing, wow, maybe I won't drop out because look at how good I did on this test.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. The other question is, so that cohort that you were just talking about, did they fit into some of the, because we had 2 areas where we're weak on our trying to really.
Yeah, the underemployed. Yeah.
So it's like transitioning or adult education. We still are some of those fit in right in there?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
They would
So-
fit into one of those 2
So
categories.
who's updating the data on this now? Is that still going through Brian? That would be a good thing to,
Though that data comes through, it's actually when we create the accounts for somebody to take the exams, which
Okay.
went through staff in my office.
because I recall that when we were worried about, or when we were trying to get the certification,
Mhm.
all of a sudden they uploaded a whole bunch of information from city and we already had it. So I was just wondering who was adding that information, and that would fill in a place where we have a blank on there.
I can double check with Dan in my office and make sure that it got in there, because everyone in the real life Rosies that took it, they were either employed for that transitional or they were unemployed, so they would fall into there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great.
Rachel?
Yeah.
Thanks for everything you do. Is it possible, and is it even done, are we tying unemployment to these programs as a requirement?
I it as a requirement,
Are people required to look for
yes.
employment?
Yes, they're required to look for work. It's either 2 or 3 jobs a week. They have to, and they have to submit it to Department of Labor. But they can also do work activities, which work keys would count for
Do
that.
we give Department of Labor in the area a list?
They're right in the same office with us, so we have our weekly staff meetings that they're a part of. So yes, they're constantly referring people over to us.
We have a great contact here, Carrie Ann Scully.
Yep.
She actually is a good friend. She's an attorney for the Department of Labor. And I just texted her. She said, God, I would do anything to help in any way. Nick's a great guy in Syracuse. But she's an old Oswego girl.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I know her name.
yeah, she's wonderful.
No, we've got really close relationship, because anyone that is currently on unemployment in Oswego County, they have to meet with Department of Labor. So they're coming into our career center, or they're doing it over the phone, but it's with the people right in our career center. So yeah, absolutely, they've got access to everything.
Good, thank you.
And I make sure of it, because that's where I came from.
Anybody else have any questions for Rachel? Okay, great job as always. Promotion and tourism. Dan?
Yep. PBS viewpoint is the commercial airs tomorrow, and the time will be given today when it's up. The segment is out on YouTube now. Also, PBS, we did last year a promotion. It's called Upstate Attractions. It has to do with Fort Ontario and Safe Haven Museum. That airs on March 11th at 7 p.m. It's about a half-hour show. So we accepted for $53,000 in New York State tourism matching funds. Salmon River Winter Festival, food, mac and cheese, wings and chili, a 3-day event. It went well, and Sean Doyle, he was happy with our participation, as well as on Facebook. It was one of our most viewed posts this with 39,000 views. With Facebook, total reach was 1,880,450. Engagement was 3,300. New followers were 187. Instagram, a total reach of 10,700, and their engagement is 706. A new visitor guide.
Yeah, I know.
You have it in front of you. I Love New York approved it. We went with the lighthouse for the National Marine Sanctuary. We thought it'd be good. Hopefully by next meeting, I will have all the copies ordered and will be in our hands. Our Instagram, our top posts were Elf Around the County, a National Planned Vacation Day, Steelhead Fishing, and Salmon Winter Festival. That's all I have.
It's a lot of fun stuff.
I'm sorry, could you repeat, when is that airing tomorrow? It's on
The
PBS
commercial?
at what time? Yeah.
We don't know yet.
Oh, we don't know.
It's on YouTube.
Okay, thank you.
So you could, right now, we can see it on
You can
YouTube.
see it, yeah.
On your site, on,
Oswego County.
okay.
Okay, great, thank you.
Turned out pretty good too.
Yeah.
Not just saying that.
If I could, I think that the folks who we interviewed did across the board an excellent job. I think it was in this room who contributed. The program ended up really well. We had some great conversations with the folks at Viewpoint. They were very impressed with how it turned out. I mean, they put it together, but they at least said that they've actually asked us if we would like to kind of help them in the future with folks who may be interested in doing something like this to kind of explain the situation process. But I want to give them a lot of credit. They did an amazing job, and it is really an incredible program. I think you're all going to be excited to watch it. Someone I spoke with said to me, "I want to move to Oswego now." That's the goal. That's the goal. So, and maybe we can shoot out an email around with the link if we haven't already.
Yeah, I think we should notify everybody.
And just as a note, so tomorrow night it'll be airing on Fox Business nationally. This advertisement, it's just a 30-second advertisement for the 7-minute program. But the actual full program will be sent out to all the PBS stations across the country, and they will be able to air that 7-minute program as often as they see fit. It's going to kind of slide in at the end of their normal 53-minute programming, and they can use it hopefully every single time. But we expect to see, and there is some. We did get some. We will get some data on how often it's aired, things like that too.
That's what I was going to wonder.
Yeah, and there were, if I remember, there were 3 deliverables, right? This Viewpoint 7-minute. Then there were 2 other products too. One longer and one shorter for social media and our use.
Yep, that's
Do
correct.
we have those yet or not?
We are finalizing those. We will be getting those shortly if we don't already. We also bought 12 vignettes, which we're going to be able to use that are kind of targeted at different industries or target areas that we want to promote. That we can serve up. Our socials on our website, we can distribute if we necessarily, but they are ours. So,
And it did go out a link to it because the press release that came out has a YouTube link.
Awesome.
Tim, I wanted to ask a question on this. I probably should ask it before now, but is there a possibility that
no, you don't get any money for it.
No. Is it possible for us to utilize, one of the things I was thinking is almost making a landing video at the top of our website for the Operation Oswego County website. Is it possible to do that, or are we going to run into any issues with ownership?
That's a great question. So if you've watched it, there is a gentleman who speaks at the beginning and kind of speaks over it. We are not able to use his likeness, that portion of it. However, we were able to negotiate. We can link to the Viewpoint page, which has him in it. We're just not allowed to use his likeness. So the actual video piece, we can use however we want.
Is there a shortened version that has that out of it? Because maybe we could just do that without the 20 seconds of that in the beginning.
My understanding is we can use it however we see fit. So we can work on that.
I think it turned out really great, and I think it's the kind of thing when somebody comes to the website to have that be right there would be perfect.
Something that you can take to a lot of different...
Site Selectors Guild, Semicon, all that. Yep.
Is there a link to it right on the main Oswego County
It needs to be.
Yeah, you know if we've done that yet? No. We talked about, I think it's going to be, but I don't think it's there yet. I think we didn't want to like steal the thunder of the big, release of it, but.
But it should be on tourism homepage, but also the county's homepage.
I think we'll get that done.
Yeah, I just think having a consistent message where we're pushing this out, that's great.
That's great. Okay, let's move right on to planning, community development. Timothy.
Okay, kind of a couple big things over the last 2 months. The housing survey. So you know the county is partnering with the IDA on a countywide housing infrastructure and really development strategy. So we're not necessarily as worried as the way it's always been. The thought is, if people are going to invest, and we expect people are going to be investing in this county, how can we help prepare? What are the right sites for it? What does zoning look like in some of the villages? How do we have planned development? And so we've had a number of really good meetings. Our steering committee has been meeting bi-weekly. That's been helpful. The full committee is meeting again, I think this week.
Tomorrow.
And this will be one of our final 2 meetings before this goes live, which we expect to be sometime in late February, early March. But the most recent meetings that have been really excellent have been, we did a landlord survey. So we worked with the housing offices of both cities, but as well as the county, to look at kind of who are our base landlords, who owns the most properties, and what are they seeing. And it was just a 1-page survey. We got some good responses. Would have liked a few more, but we got a handful. We also kind of worked out with our largest employers in the county to say, what are you seeing with housing? What are your concerns? So we took all that data, put that together, and that'll be the results of that will be shown in the study. We also met with 6 of the 9 superintendents, and we spent half an hour with each one of them. I want to thank them. They really were. You could tell that they were passionate about this. They understand that housing is one of their biggest issues as well, depending on the communities. We talked to both city superintendents, and then we spoke with the southern 2 superintendents, and then we also spoke with 2 more kind of in the North Country and Hannibal. So tried to really get a good picture of what we're looking at. You probably all know this, but across the board, we're seeing a substantial decrease in the population of our schools. Sure, some of that is homeschooling has definitely blown up a bit over the last couple of years since COVID. But they're seeing, and it's not just certain ages, it's across the board. And some of the schools you'd have expected, Phoenix and Central Square, which you being on that Onondaga border, they were losing somewhere around 40 to 50 people a year and have that for 7-8 years. So it's not necessarily new, it's been pretty consistent. What that means, though, is that if we do see the huge housing growth that we expect and people moving back in here into our area, many of the school districts have capacity to add because they've lost so many people in the last 10 years. And so they don't expect to need new buildings, potentially, and many of them didn't actually decrease the teacher count either. They just went to smaller classes. So it'll be interesting to see with the new regulations of the state if they will need to add a lot more teachers. But at least in talking to the superintendents we spoke with, they're not concerned about capacity. They think they can handle this growth. As we talked about, if the micron numbers are what they're projecting, they're stating we're going to need 2,500 new housing units a year for 10 years in the region. We're averaging less than 600 currently. So that's a pretty substantial increase. Where are these people going to go? The conversation we're really talking about right now. So that's the housing update. I expect to see that February, March. Again, I want to thank all of you who've been part of the that process. Is there any questions on the housing stuff, the housing study?
The study in the surveys, correct? I don't know if anybody's ever seen this before, as I got, I paid my taxes and I asked for a copy of the taxes to come back. Paid, okay, so they sent it to me, and in that envelope was a survey from B&L about wastewater and water, that they were notifying me of a meeting to go to for, and I was like, how well, that is a great thing that you're merging it with something that people are going right to their houses. So it's the first time I've ever seen that. Has anybody ever seen that type of thing? I think it's a great idea. And the town even put a town newsletter in the tax thing. I go, well, that's pretty cool. I never saw that before, so just a thought for maybe to say if your local want to help out with that.
I just want to thank Tim and Nate from my office. They've really been sort of spearheading and meeting with the MRB group and the team there who's doing the housing study on it every 2 weeks and sort of helping to drive that thing forward. I know that Tim's really kind of passionate about this and sort of, really doing a lot of, and it does connect with a lot of the other things. So like what's happening here with housing is also interrelated to what's happening with infrastructure, and it's also what's happening, with schools and everything else. So this is one of those things that, there's a spider web that kind of comes off of these that, you can't do this without having all these other things, but, we're kind of, I think we're at a point where before it was like, oh, we have so much we need to do, and it's sort of a paralysis, but we're moving all these things forward now. And so it's happy to see that. One thing, Tim, I think that there was, with the business survey, they did say, hey, if we do that, it might make things take 2 weeks longer, so we might be looking more at middle to late March now for the full study, but it was important to get the input from the business community about housing. That wasn't something that was originally in the scope. They included it with no additional charge, but just said, hey, it will probably make things take a little bit longer, which we were good with because we want to make sure we have all those audiences, their input.
What time is that meeting tomorrow?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Reason I did not have time in my thing.
I'll tell you here. It is at 11 o'clock.
Thank you. Okay. Anything?
Anything else?
Right. I'm calling everybody different
You
names.
can only There's a whole story about that.
Yeah.
So the
It's contagious. I'm sorry.
yeah, I blanked on it.
Yeah.
About the talk about the spider webs. The
Mhm.
reason you probably got that survey is because you're in an area where we're trying to work on whether or not we're going to try to apply all together or separately for the going down the trail with with infrastructure. And to be honest with you, I think that is one of the most important things we could start to press, and any way that we can do that, keeping the whole legislature informed, the chairman informed, and I'm going to try to actually meet with Mark Bombardo today if he's available and just get an update, because I've been tasked by my town to try to spearhead that. They're really interested, but I think that's one of those that whole using that corridor for not just water and sewer, but gas and electric or cable. Whatever infrastructure can go in the ground through that thing just creates a pipeline for growth. And I think it's one of the most important things we can work on this year.
Actually, my next update is on exactly what they're real saying. So they're calling it the SOCRIS, which is the Southern Oswego County. What's the R?
Regional.
Might be regional.
Infrastructure. But anyway, I'll give you the full letter. But,
Another acronym.
I should have memorized the acronym. But this is so infrastructure is probably the biggest issue. So we're talking about housing. The idea, we have lots of land around here. We won't get into the wetland stuff. We do have a lot of physical land around here. The thing that's keeping people from putting houses there is that they have to dig a giant hole, right? So how do we work on that? And so one of the things that we've been working through, both our strategic initiatives office, Dave, Kyle, and Mark Bombardo has been very active helping us out with that, is looking kind of over what the inventory of the county looks like. Where do we have wastewater? Where we don't have wastewater, where could we? Where would it make sense? We're identified a location in Volney for a project that this county funded almost a decade ago in Volney, looking at where could we extend the sewer line that goes to the city of Volney. They've got some capacity there. It would be actually helpful for them, and it's not too far. We go up to, if you're familiar on Route 3, where the Volney school is there, the elementary school, that is the end of the sewer line. Well, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, we put together a whole program. It actually was passed into law. There's a district that's been created, but it kind of stopped there because now you have to do it, right? And so a couple years ago, we were able to do a part of that, which was the sewer line to the airport. So now we're looking at potentially continuing that line from where it is currently down County Route 3 to our Bristol Hill. If you know, that's our waste facility there. That does not have sewer. We are currently piping gross things. We're putting through a truck and driving into the city, and every day we do that. The thought would be, and the original plan was, why don't we connect that with a sewer line, and then we can pipe it all underground. Let's go through communities. There's no risk of waste. It's a lot cheaper and environmentally more friendly. So something we're looking at. In addition to that, there's some other funding opportunities through the state that could help us pay for that. So we actually just this week partnered with Barton & Judas, who were the ones who did the original study. And they're going to help us put together all the documents that we need to put a grant application in this summer to hopefully get them in. It's about a $7 million project. And our hope is that we can get maybe 3 or 4 of that covered through state and federal funds. So that is kind of the more northern portion. But the southern portion, also working with B&L, there's a contract that was signed this week as well, to get them to do all the design work on the exact project that Roy is talking about, which is that Socris sewer line. If we're able to do that, that would connect the entire, pretty much the entire southern portion of our county on one trunk line. It would open up an entire area that we could build off of down the road, and it would really give us the opportunity to put in housing all across that kind of Schuylkill, Palermo, Hastings, even Constantia area. That entire stretch, West Monroe, you could put in sewer lines and be able to develop housing there. So it really is, it's a game changer. Now it's about a $90 million project, but I want to thank our friends at B&L who put together a funding strategy that could end up costing us substantially less than that, maybe on a local cost, maybe only a couple $1 million for a $90 million project. And the long-term benefit to this county is almost immeasurable to have that kind of sewer line there. So exciting times. We are meeting on that very regularly. We just had a county-wide meeting, and I know the towns and villages are having their own meetings as well. The NORCOG group has been very active in it as well.
Yeah, so far, unfortunately, I haven't gotten all of those towns together. Yeah, that's what's got to happen next.
I just want to add, I think it's something that has a huge benefit to all these communities that have, the issue solving wastewater is a density issue, and these communities don't have it. So it's a chicken or egg issue of, you don't have density, you can't get infrastructure. Well, you don't have infrastructure, you can't get density, and so you have to solve it somehow. And I think that, the other thing that wasn't mentioned by Tim, but I think that, this is going to have to be a conversation at some point, is some sort of a county infrastructure authority or development corp, something that can help, because this is the rail trail is owned wholly by the county from Fulton all the way to Cleveland. And, with 81, kind of breaking it up for a little spot, but it's so the county owns this rail trail, which really provides that right of way, the easy right of way to be able to put that in, and the way that infrastructure is currently done in Oswego County. And this is not the way it's done everywhere. I mean, we're kind of, one of the unique ones on this is that all infrastructure, all sewer plants are owned by municipalities, and all sewer districts are owned by municipalities. In other counties, sewer plants could be owned by the county themselves or some regional authority, and the same thing with sewer districts. That could also be done. So there's the potential, especially because this is an asset that's owned by the county, that if there was a trunk line put in, that could be owned by the county or some entity, and then the sewer districts to come off of that could be the way they are now, which is the local communities. All that waste is then brought and sent to the City of Fulton wastewater plant, which has significant capacity right now because you've had Nestle and Birdseye and all these other things that used to go into that plant and been taken off. So they have millions of gallons of unused capacity, which could then also actually make their plant work better because it was designed at this higher level, and you've only have 20, 30, 40% of the stuff running through it. So it has a lot of benefit. It's just something that, I think the county has thought about this in the past and just never pulled the trigger on. And I think at some point we're going to have to look at that, what that model is, and get support from the legislature to do it.
Anything else?
A couple of just quick ones. Broadband update. So I think you all know that Dave and Kyle in Strategic Initiatives Office are working very, very actively on getting the broadband project started. Right? There's the actual putting the wires on the poles. Right? Seems like it's the most advanced part. It's not. The biggest part is getting permission to put those on the poles. They're not our poles. They're national grids typically, and there's a whole long process of getting access to put those power line or those cables on the poles. So they're working through that right now. The whole project will be completed by the end of 26. It has to be. That's one of the requirements of the funding. And so they are moving on a breakneck speed. We have a weekly meeting with the state every Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Where we go over where do we stand and how do this thing moving. So the consultants that we brought on, MPR and DCC, have been incredibly active. This thing's moving. So I just wanted to just kind of bring a quick update, give a lot of credit to the folks in our office that are doing this work, but it's coming and it's going to be here. We will have 1,200, 1,400 unreached people with access to the internet, high-speed internet, and anyone else who lives along those lines as well. So it's not just going to benefit 1,200 people who currently that FCC believes is not served. It will really benefit everybody because what we have heard, and it makes sense, having just updated my Spectrum bill, it is $110 for 500 speed broadband. Okay, 500 up. 100, that is incredible to me. I've never heard of something like that. The only alternative would be 100, which is $75. So that's Spectrum, right? Sorry to Spectrum if they watch this, but what they're finding is that when another company comes in and installs high-speed internet, It creates competition. Spectrum's bills have been reduced by over 50% in the areas where this competition comes in. So we are not just benefiting, obviously, the folks who don't have internet right now, we're benefiting the whole county. And I really, truly believe that our cities and our villages are going to see a huge savings on their monthly bills because competition's good.
I still got one quick thing I want to say to Tim. It took me a moment to find this, but I just want to put a plug in for Minetto. It is currently permitted for 1 million gallons of sewage a day. That has the capacity for easily more than double that.
Yep.
I just want to keep saying.
And they are definitely one of the key, especially on the west side of the river. They are the key, I would say, one of the key plans for us down the road as we
Needs to be
expand
looked at.
into Minetto, as we go town, Hannibal, even parts of Granby. So, it absolutely is. And they're part of the conversation. We've talked to them a number of times as well. We have a gem there. And they've said that it would help them being able to have more who won't go through there. Also, real quick, we have an EPA grant. I think we've talked about this in the past. This has allowed us to do phase 1 and some phase 2 work for developable sites. So just to plug again, if you have any old gas stations that have no one will buy because they don't want to deal with the mess, this is a great opportunity to get the state to cover the environmental review piece. We are waiting, and see what happens now. We are waiting to hear back about the second application that we put in for another $500,000 to do more of those. There's been such demand for these programs throughout our county that they've been really, really beneficial. We've seen a number of properties that probably would never have been developed because we helped get this environmental review piece done. A buyer came in and bought it to do the work because they then knew, it got rid of the uncertainty. They knew how much it was going to cost. So keep that in mind for areas. Also, one quick update, Marine Sanctuary. We've had some amazing updates on that. I don't want to steal Phil's thunder, but
He's going to talk about it.
you are? Okay, great. And we just got some really great news on the federal park status of Fort Ontario. I don't want to spoil that too much, but great news. It looks like both houses of government have come together to put one united bill forward. The issue and reason it didn't get funded last year is because they could not agree, and they put two completely separate bills in. So they never could. But good news, they're working together. Government's working together. We should see that. Other than that, the only thing I had was the comprehensive plan update. As you know, we funded a comprehensive plan for the county. There's a little back and forth with the contract with the vendor we ultimately selected, which is EDR. They're the ones who did Onondaga's program and Cortland counties. We're going to be starting that we're going to start those meetings so much soon. So I will probably be reaching out to you for contacts in your communities that you would like to help put in contact with us. Our countywide plan is going to have to involve all 33 towns, villages, cities. That's it, sorry.
Okay, a lot of information, but anybody got any other questions, Jen? Okay, moving right on. And mobility management.
Hi. So if anyone wants one of these, I do have these. They light up. They're little buses. Oh.
Let's just ask. Let's just
Pass them around, everybody will take one, yeah.
The reason why I brought those, of course, it's fun to give out things like that, but
Chatsy, everybody loves Chatsy.
yeah, there's been a lot of attention recently with the lack of services for children. We've had a lot of conversations with the school districts, with pre-K not having enough funding for their transport. So I have a focus this year in just getting youth interested in public transit or working on solutions and how we can get collaborations with school districts and figure out what we can do to help with the youth transportation. But that's just the knick-knack we had last year on the table. But.
So is this transportation for the youth, is that something that, I know with the mandate that says that we have to pay for the daycare children, handicapped?
It's not a new mandate,
But I knew there was a new increase or something of it.
Yeah, the price went up.
Yes,
The cost of the service went up, and I contacted Vera and Heather about that. And started working on, some other counties have been able to reduce their costs, so we're going to look at what those counties are doing.
Because isn't it, that's the one where the parents choose where they want their child to go, and that was the problem. And as far as we tried to get the schools to take on some of the expense, but they said no, so, of transportation.
Yeah, a lot of the districts with pre-K in particular and Head Start programs offer transportation only one way. So you have parents choosing, well, I could put my child on the bus in the morning or I can put them on the bus in the afternoon when they have to come home. So that's the challenge, is it's not a round trip transportation for the kids, it's one way, and they have to figure that out with their working schedules. So we'll talk about that and figure out how we can help.
There's another challenge with that too, and I just ran into it because my girls, when their birthdays are, they won't bus the kids till they're 4.
Yeah, that's another
So you
issue.
have your 3-year-old starting,
Yeah,
and you don't have a choice.
Well,
yeah.
I don't think it's a great idea to put a 3-year-old on a bus, personally.
Well, no, absolutely not.
I wouldn't put. I think that's a good rule.
But if there's no other way, then they can't start
Yeah.
going to anything.
Yeah.
Put your minimum.
Many challenges with the age and with transport for the younger kiddos. So definitely something we'll be working on. It's something new to me, so that will be a fun challenge. I don't know how much I can say for this, so I'm going to keep it very limited. But our access contract bid closes today. So that was put back out to RFP. I think we might have to put together a scoring committee.
Meaning there's hopefully more than one respondent. is what you're saying.
There's gonna be competition, that's what we want. We wanna have
We've
competition.
had questions, and that's good.
Okay.
Questions are good. So, Centro did attend our last pack, so thank you so much for coming. It's always nice to have you there.
Well, I enjoy seeing everybody. It's a good community, event with everybody. I mean, how many people were at that event?
Over 50.
Over 50.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a little bit from everybody. And then when you're there together, so many people have the same issue, and that's where it really comes out. And that was the best part of it.
Yeah, that's the point of TAC. I mean, that committee started with, 6 to 8 people when you guys originally started that, and to have the last couple of meetings have over 50 people and to get that community buy-in and feedback has been really, really helpful for us.
Yeah.
Central came and presented at our last TAC meeting. They are doing a system redesign here in Oswego. So if you haven't heard about it, there's going to be a public comment period where public input will be gathered for this system redesign. Their idea is to split their route. So right now they have a route downtown Oswego that goes all the way from the college up to Walmart and back. It's just one very long, continuous route. So they're going to split it and put a hub in the middle. This is their idea. And instead of having one bus go all the way up, split it and have 2 buses shuttle back and forth so that people aren't on their bus longer than 15 minutes going downtown. So their idea is to have more of a rapid route in the main area that has less stops and can get people back and forth quicker. And then they have an east and a west route that they'll be doing in the outer skirts of the Oswego area, which they have now. But it's just very confusing because there's multiple route names. It's like OSW, 2D, 2C, 2B. So now it's just going to be an east and a west route. It's going to be much simpler and much more effective. It's not going to affect any of their paratransit services. The idea is just to make the routes more effective, and their goal is to launch the new route September of 2025. So they have a very aggressive timeline for that.
Heather, because the one little drawback, especially for legislators from that district, the city districts, is that they are no longer going to be servicing north of 104. They're a fixed route. So that will affect some folks in the first and second wards. That typically the bus route used to go farther north. So something to keep in mind. If they need on demand, that would still be available, but specifically the fixed route piece.
Yeah, we still service, just like we do in people that doesn't have public transit. So they can still reserve our bus with a vendor to go pick them up and take them anywhere in the county with our access service. But this is the point where if community wants to see service up there still, they haven't had a whole lot of ridership, but this is our chance to provide that feedback to them. You know, this is important, or we want to see the routes actually go all the way up here, or we think that this would be a popular spot. They're listening to us, so I want to give them the feedback. I think a lot of times they have these comment periods and nobody provides any feedback, and that's just how it is. So your feedback's important. We're going to work with the local press so that we can make an announcement so everyone will get the information that where to send their feedback and how long the comment period will be.
I think it would be a good idea to reach out to Legislator Scanlon, because that is his district, runs along where those routes were or would have been. So
yeah,
I think he should be brought into discussion.
and we have a map, so make sure we give him the map, the proposed map of their.
So I'm not sure he's
changes.
aware, so it would be good for him to be aware then.
Absolutely. With their redesigned, Central is also rebranding. They are very close to announcing their new CEO, I've heard. So keep your ears out for that.
It's not Rachel Snow, right? Or Rachel Heather Snow, sorry, combine the two of you.
That's what
I'm all her words. My words, I've contaminated all of it.
I'm the Legislature. Their new buses are beautiful. They are all solid blue. They said that our county will probably be last to get these new buses, which is typical. But they do have these new buses that will be introduced that are a solid blue color. I don't know if I handed these out last time, but I'm going to pass them around so you guys have them. This is just a rough draft. This is not set in stone. But we have an opportunity to create additional streams of revenue with transit, which is rare because a lot of times transit is not really like a revenue earning type of service. But a lot of times we see advertisements in buses on the outside, on the inside, on the board of the buses. And when you create a label or a sticker, a lot of times these advertisements can be outdated very quickly once you stick it on something. So our idea is to, we're working with IT internally on getting digital screens put in our new buses only. And these screens will be able to flash things like our ADA regulations, which I have to state with love. Advertisements from partnering organizations like need help with food sources, contact this person. Reaching out to other county partners to put their advertisements on there. I think this is a good way for people riding the bus to be able to see some phone numbers or important information on the screens. So that's just an opportunity that will be coming soon, and we'll have that small project done this year.
Well, there's nothing more frustrating than seeing an advertisement, getting excited about it, and then checking in and it's no longer going.
We'll be able to
Good
change
update.
these from our computer. Like I could go in and update it like that.
Yeah.
Question?
I just was gonna say it would be nice to have maybe a suicide hotline number, domestic violence numbers, stuff like that.
Absolutely. I'd love to have just a variety of resources on there. It's coming. And then lastly, veteran Centro passes. So the initiative that Centro has are two. This is last. Centro has announced that their manufacturer that's making the machines to provide to our county for veterans to have free transportation. They have like the final stages in production and how to get these built from scratch. So it's been taking them a while to get these up in this county that they serve. But the machine is going to be placed in the veterans office, and they're going to have one at Centro's hub in Oswego. And veterans will be able to fill out a half sheet. It's a very quick form. They'll get a permit pass that they can scan when they get on the bus, and it will allow them to have free transportation on any Centro route going anywhere that they serve.
It's excellent.
Yeah, so they have promised that those machines will be finished, being built and delivered this year. So we're excited about that because that opens up a lot for veterans inside and also going to DAV in Syracuse.
Nice if they could do it before Veterans Day.
Yeah, that's the goal. And then last update, I swear, the Syracuse Metropolitan Transit Council, we worked a lot with NorCog Group on this project for the study being done at Corridor 49 in Central Square, Hastings, West Monroe area. So the council has put out the Unified Planning Work Program, which that project is included in that for public comment. So that is open on their website for comment. This is a project that was funded through Onondaga County funding, not our funding, which I love. So that study, once it's completed, I believe it was roughly $65,000 that was given for that project. Once that traffic study and safety study is done, they can submit that to the state because the state is involved with this project. They can take a look at that study and hopefully decide to make an investment in that area and make those changes to the roads over there. So we'll keep you guys up to date on that, but it's a great when we can put together a proposal and it gets to the right people. Lots of stuff going on. Grant 5311 is due today, so we will be getting that finalized and submitted. So that's all I have.
Anybody have any other comments or questions for Heather? Yes, right.
So I think part of the reason that TAC has worked is because every quarter that they come, something has changed and something's gotten better, something's gotten newer, and that's a credit to all you've done. Have we? I know I've been talking about hubs for years, so I'm excited about Central. Have we started thinking about breaking up some of ours? Is that something that's on the horizon of creating our own hubs? And
do you want to talk on this?
I would just say that is absolutely something that has been considered internally. We are working in kind of a longer term plan on the best way to provide transportation throughout this county in the most efficient way and sustainable way.
We've done a lot of analyzing with
Very cryptic.
services. Yeah, we've done a lot of financial analyzing services and how we can make them more cost effective, and we've stumbled upon some pretty good data that we can share with you.
good.
Very cryptic.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
In time.
In time. Okay. More to be coming. All right. Bill.
Yeah, very quickly, there's been some progress on the marine sanctuary for 2025. NOAA has contracted with the DLR Group, their global infrastructure planning and design firm, to do a facility study in the region regarding future interpretive operational research infrastructure for NOAA in the 4 counties. They brought them through to introduce them to the area last week, offered a meeting to us, so I quickly got together Operations Oswego County, SUNY Oswego School District, the Port, and County Planning to meet with this group representatives initially. During the summer, they're going to be conducting their research and their study, having focus groups. They may contact some of you, e-surveys of the community as they gather all this information, make recommendations to NOAA about infrastructure here. Also, what is planned for 2025, NOAA will be placing diver access buoys on 4 wrecks within the sanctuary. 3 of them are off of Oswego County. The 4th is off of Wayne. I'm going to try to urge them to do one, a couple off of Jefferson, at least 2. They are also NOAA's largest freshwater research vessel, the Lake Guardian, will be here for the summer, working with the University of Rhode Island to locate and image, begin documenting wrecks within the sanctuary. While they are doing that, they're going to have an open house for the public to tour the research vessel, and they are going to conduct like a teleeducation programs from the research vessel into local schools. Ellen Brody, who many of you may have met, who's been working on this project for NOAA for most of the last 10 years. She's been appointed acting superintendent of the sanctuary until the employment situation of the federal government settles down and they feel comfortable with appointing or recruiting a permanent superintendent. NOAA is also sending folks into the region from their NOAA Voices program to begin collecting oral histories from people. Importantly, NOAA has hired West Virginia University to conduct a socio-economic study of all the communities in the Great Lakes that have marine sanctuaries. So that'll be Alpena, Wisconsin, lake areas in designation phase, and us. And what's important for us is this will be and for NOAA, is this is the first time NOAA will have been doing social economic study in the first year at the start of the sanctuary, so they will have baseline data to be able to show what changes in communities with sanctuaries. So to me, that means they may be willing to put more resources into ours to show their impact and the advantages. Within the next few weeks, they'll announce the members of the new advisory council, and they are expanding their educational programs within our local schools. APW, I didn't know this, had been participating for the last 5 years, and but they are going to expand that into the school districts and ours and other counties. So that's their, as it is right now, their work plan for 2025 here.
I'd say buy some stock in diving equipment, because I can see this is gonna be a real tourism thing, and even locals are gonna wanna start thinking about diving with all the excitement, especially if you're getting photos of these, and they'll probably be put in to wherever they have their brick and mortar.
Right, oh yeah, and they use them online as well in creating lesson plans for schools. They have a page for media to use, and folks like our tourism department can go in and get those images and use them in our own advertising and video, things of that nature.
Regular bus stop that will be right there.
I was telling you, we should run our tourism video like on our farmers market buses.
Yes.
Because we get tourists that will go and camp at the Rudy's RV camp. We've had a couple of years in a row, you get tourists that come there and then they hop on that bus to go see downtown. Like, let's put those videos on those buses during farmers market season.
That's right. There you go. Now you can put a video on the digital things.
Yeah, so our screens are just, we can upload. The only thing is we probably won't have audio. I may be able to put words up there, but because we have ADA regulations with the bus drivers having to make announcements.
It could be maybe CC though,
Yeah,
you know, closed
Well,
caption.
we could do that. We'll just make sure we have,
Okay,
yeah, put a video on there.
well, that's great. Well, a lot going on. So what do you think? You like our committee here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
take it in for now.
Yeah, okay, all right. Well, at that point, I look for a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
All righty, thank you so much, everybody.